Thank you very much. As Tony said, my name is Michael Gavin. I work at Accenture. I work in our human capital practice, and for the past year, I've had a special focus on leading some of our research and point of view development around what it will take for federal agencies specifically to build a AI-ready workforce. And before I get started, I do want to just start by thanking Federal Computer Week for putting this event together. This is such an incredibly important topic. Not only is it incredibly relevant, as Kirk mentioned earlier, this is on the top of the president's management agenda, thinking about how we develop the 21st century workforce in federal, and then also kind of allowing workers to focus on higher value activities. It's also just an incredibly important topic for each and every one of us in terms of how we live our lives. I was telling some folks earlier this morning that I have a 2.5-foot tall 10-month-old who is 25 pounds. So just imagine that for a second, all right? This little guy is the size of a 2-year-old, okay, and he's 10 months old. So getting ready in the morning with him is a little bit difficult, so I lay him on the ground. I have one arm down like this, trying to change the diaper, and it became necessary for us to kind of get an Amazon Echo for his nursery so that I can multitask when I'm going through this whole thing. Alexa, put on nursery rhymes. Alexa, what time is it? Alexa, what's the weather outside? And it's just caused me to think about how different the world is today from when I was 10 months old and how different the world will be when he enters the workforce. And so this incredibly important topic is important to me personally as we think about kind of what is the next generation. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to talk today. So during my talk, I'm going to go through a lot of research that we've done. There's going to be a lot of different data points that I'm throwing up. But really, there are 3 key points that I just want to make sure that I am able to impart with you today. The first is that for all of our research that we've conducted, we know that federal employees at all levels, executives all the way through the staff, know that emerging technology, the wave is not just coming, it is here. AI is having an impact. The second thing is that federal workers believe that they possess the skills, the talent, the ability to be able to be part of the federal workforce of the future, that 21st century workforce, but they don't feel as though their agencies are really communicating what that means to them yet. There's this thirst for information that's coming from workers, and they expect that their agency and that their leadership is going to prepare them for the future. And the third thing that I want to impart on you is that it is not too late. So even though federal workers know that this tsunami is here, they feel maybe like they're not really getting the information that they need from their leadership, it's not too late. By and large, perceptions around AI and how it's going to impact work, as Kirk was saying earlier, remain very positive. People are not negative about AI. And so really the question becomes, how do we harness some of that? And I'm going to walk through some specific tactics that we're recommending in terms of how to do that. So just to start with some of the numbers, in preparation for the 2018 World Economic Forum in Davos, Accenture did a huge global research study. We interviewed over 12,000 senior executives across 12 industry groups in 11 countries. We collected results from over 14,000 surveys. And really, the point of this slide is that, look at that bottom number. Out of all of the results that we collected, people felt that only 11% of the jobs that they have today are not something that could be augmented by emerging technology such as AI. So they felt that the work that their employees are doing, again, this is across all industries, is either augmentable or automatable. So this is something that's here. I mean, this is going to have an enormous impact on the workforce. I think what's also interesting in this research that we found, again, this was the global study, is that executives, when they were surveyed about how willing they were to invest in the type of training and communication and employee engagement that would be required to ready the workforce, only 3% of global executives said that they were planning on investing in communication and training for the future workforce. So, as a show of hands, I always love it when data comes to life. How many people here in this room are interested in preparing either yourself or your workforce for what the future looks like with emerging tech and AI. Right? So that's everyone in this room. So what I'm hoping, practically everyone, I think maybe a couple hands weren't down. So what I'm hoping to do is for the people who feel passionately about this, provide you with some data points so that when you go back to your agencies, you are able to articulate the business case. Why is this so important, and why do we need to invest in readying the workforce for what is about to happen, or what is already happening? So we did this big global study. And this caused us within our federal practice area to say, yeah, but the federal government's a little bit different. So let's look specifically within federal. So towards the end of last year, we did a federal specific study. We interviewed 500 folks from across 20 different agencies that represented both civilian and defense. And I'm going to walk through some of those results. So you can see here that when it came to the executives that responded to the survey, 82% of executives agree that within 2 or more years, AI is going to be a coworker on someone's team. So we call it like the machine on your team. And I was thinking a little bit about this, like, that's a huge percent, 82%. And I was like, why are we seeing this all of a sudden? And it's because of the speed with which things are happening. I mean, I was reflecting earlier today with some folks about how we were all so amazed that first episode of Jeopardy when Watson was one of the contestants, right? And so that was in February of 2011. And we were like, wow, how could this be possible? Well, just 8 months later in October, Siri was deployed to all of our iPhones, right? So we had that technology on our person that we had only ever seen on television before, and it seemed like this quantum leap forward, and then we were using it. So I think that's what's driving some of this, that federal executives, 82% of them, believe that it's totally conceivable within the next 2 years that their teams will be comprised of both people and machine. And that also leads to the second point, that what's available in the marketplace today in terms of people's adoption is progressing at a rate that's much faster than their agency is able to keep up. So when it came down to not just the executive level, but the workers, and this gets to some of the points that were made earlier, the perception that we've had in the past about, well, workers are really resistant to this. They're not bought in. They don't think that they're going to be affected. They don't see the benefits. That's not true anymore based on where we are today. Workers, by and large, see there being great benefit to their work. They see it increasing productivity, reducing errors, improving the citizen experience in terms of the quality of service that they're able to provide. And they, too, see that 51% of their roles are going to share differently in terms of the work that they're doing between what they're responsible for and what AI might be doing for them. And there is this perception that this is actually a benefit to them, that it will create opportunities for them to continue growing and developing. Now, on the flip side of this, what I was citing earlier is that even though there is this opportunity, our research also showed that 73% of all of the workers that were surveyed believe that their agency leadership is not doing a good job communicating what the vision is for how AI will be inserted or what the AI roadmap is. So clearly there's a disconnect here around some of the enthusiasm that workers are feeling and then maybe the expectation that they be hearing more. And to the point about skills, it's funny because I know that we talk about this war for talent, and Ranjiv just went through kind of some of the ways that AI might be applied to the recruiting process, right? Because we need to do a better job getting people into the roles that we have open. The other way to look at it, just to kind of turn it on its side for a second, but what do we do with the people who are in the jobs now, today? So as more of their time becomes available because more tasks are automated or being done by the machine that's on their team, how do we upskill or reskill them to actually fill some of that talent gap so that it's not just about going out and recruiting and finding new people, it's about building from within the team that you already have. And so then that caused us to ask this question about, well, the people that we have, what is their own level of confidence in terms of their ability to actually upskill? Did they believe that they have the skills and abilities that they need? Overwhelmingly, survey respondents said, yes, we do. Nearly 80% said that they believe that they have the abilities to be part of the future workforce. And why is that? Is it because 80% of people feel like they can code and test and work in some of these technologies? No. It's because they believe that they have the other kind of, quote, soft skills, right? To be in the interpersonal relationships, the communication, the collaboration, that high-touch citizen service. And if they just had more time to do that, and they were more trained on those things, they are certain that their skills and abilities can be part of that future. So, I mentioned before that we did this big global study, and one of the things that the global study showed us is that people aren't willing to invest in training, and that was a particular barrier. We wanted to understand what might some of the barriers be within federal, because federal is a little bit different, as all of you know. Well, here you can see what people's perceptions of the barriers were. And I was looking at this slide the other day, and I was thinking, wow, this is a lot of like rows and numbers and data. And so I was like, how could I simplify this a little bit? When I look at all of this, there are kind of three themes or three buckets that they all fall into. One is around this like limited resources or limited lack of prioritization. How important is it to the agency that I actually, that this get done? The second is around this heavy dependency on legacy. So whether that's legacy IT, legacy data, not clean data, paper-based processes, et cetera. But the third thing that jumps out is take a look at number 2 up there. This whole like, well, how ready is the workforce? And I think that for so long, we've all held this belief that the workforce was going to be the biggest barrier to adopting new technology. And that's people's perceptions. It's number 2, that 39% of survey respondents said that the challenge in introducing AI was going to be worker anxiety, fear of displacement. Well, our other results are completely contradictory to that people are actually willing, able, energized, and excited. So the other thing that we found is that people's perception is that they're just not the priority, that their agency leadership and the mission that those folks have at the senior executive level is more on refining the process, introducing new technology, none of the above, which you can see is a big part of that 29%. I think what goes into that are things like implementing legislative mandates or ensuring compliance with certain things. So I can understand why that would be a top priority. But people's perception, 15%, that they are just not the priority when it comes to what their agency is trying to accomplish. So what do? I said before, it's not too late. Now actually may be the best time to take action because people's perceptions are still being shaped about what AI is and how it might impact their work. The smallest percentage of responses is that 14%, which is the negative perception of AI. This is what we think of back 10 years ago when people were saying, well, automation and artificial intelligence and robotics process automate, that's all going to replace my job, so I should be afraid of having that machine on my team. Well, that's the smallest percentage. 86% of respondents have either a neutral or a positive impression of what AI can do. So let's take the time now to act. So what we've come up with at Accenture are these 4 kind of succinct things, easy for folks to remember if you're trying to get tactical in terms of what do I do now to actually ready my workforce. Educate and energize. That's all about making it fun for the employee. We work with clients where they're doing tech talks, where they're having CTO and CIO office hours and open door days, where employees can go into the CTO's office and hear about their vision for how AI is going to be implemented and give them the opportunity to ask questions. So that's what that is all about, educate and energize. Focus on the tasks and not the jobs. So this is, Ranjiv just talked actually a lot about this. This is that intersection of human capital analytics and workforce planning. Look at not the job series or the job title or the competencies. Let the tasks that people are doing involve them in identifying what those tasks are, what percentage of those tasks can be automated, what's left in terms of the truly human component of the work that they need to do, and allow that to build up the competencies and the job job series. Think about what the jobs of the future might be. What type of legal advice do we need on responsible AI and removing bias in data? So that's kind of the second focus area. The third is to co-create the roadmap with employees, to get the director, managers, and staff levels to actually think about, in the 3 phases of the AI lifecycle, from educate, prototype, to institutionalize, what does that journey look like for our organization? Make sure that there's an open dialogue. And then fourth, incubate technology and skills. So when I think about that, this is really about making sure that it's not just a CTO or CIO decision. Somehow, we've got to collectively work together to make sure that the business operational people, the CIO and CTO folks, the CFO, and the Chief Human Capital Officer are all kind of in this think tank, right? Where they can identify the process area, the people, and the technology that needs to be incubated, so that then that can be kind of a launching point in terms of how AI is introduced to either that particular unit or the broader organization. And I do think that part of this is also back to the point on risk appetite. Part of that incubation is about getting those people together, or the representatives, to kind of think about what are the risks that we want to take, and that's the launching off point from there. So again, I think the couple of key takeaways here are just that people know that this is coming. It's not something that's far off into the future. People believe that their skills and abilities are adaptable to the change that's coming, and they just haven't heard from the people that they would expect to about the journey that they're about to embark on. And it's not too late. There are very simple tactics to be taken up in order to realize this vision. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
And I am honestly afraid to open up to Q&A, because I think when we get into the workforce, it's going to be a long, long conversation. So we are at time for a networking break. I'm going to suggest we keep the Q&A for that last portion of the event, and then if people have specific things they can't wait, we've got a 15-minute networking break about to start right now that we can take these up in small groups. The one question I will pose is that the survey research that you were talking about, is that full data available for people who are interested to dig in?
Great question. Yes, it is. It's on Accenture.com. We can make sure that people have that information. We just published the full report in February.
Great, great. Excellent. Thank you very, very much.